Hello, thank you for joining us today. I'm Laura Kunkel, American Bloom's Executive Director. American Bloom has been around for almost 25 years. We envision communities across the country as welcoming and vibrant places to live, work, and play, benefiting from colorful plants and trees, enjoying clean environments, celebrating heritage, and planting pride through volunteerism. Through our programs, grant opportunities, online resources, and the sharing of best ideas from towns and cities across the country, we empower communities to beautify and improve the overall quality of life. Today's webinar is an example of the ways that American Bloom shares information to help communities become more beautiful, vibrant, and sustainable. You can learn more about AIB by visiting our website at americainbloom.org. Okay, a quick housekeeping note. If you have questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A section of your Zoom toolbar, which is likely at the bottom of your screen. We'll answer questions at the end. Please don't put the questions in the chat feature. Please put them in the Q&A area. Also, this webinar is being recorded. It will be posted on the AIB website later today and also posted on AIB's Facebook page. Today's webinar is entitled Flourishing Communities, Using the Right Plants for Sustainable and Stunning Public Spaces. We are grateful to have Josh Miller with us. Josh is the Landscape Manager for Proven Winners. Thank you so much, Josh. Take it away.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you everyone for joining today. A few housekeeping things on my side as well. I'll be referencing notes all around my area here, so I might be moving a little bit. And I hope to have a hard copy available of the slides and some of my notes later on. I still have a few notes to finish off regarding the slides, but hopefully those can be available sometime soon through Laura or the AIB website. So we want to talk today about sustainable projects, sustainable public beautification, and the process of how to get there. What you're looking at on the screen is a photo of the Pleasant View Gardens open house garden in New Hampshire, in Loudon, New Hampshire. And it's a great example of a highly maintained, high profile public display, although it's hidden up in the Northeast, one of Proven Winners' hidden gems for sure. But these are high maintenance displays, and the most important part of those is that we go through our measurable criteria to come up with a good plan. So today we'll cover the research, planning, mobilizing, and execution of what goes into these displays. And whenever possible, I'll use common terms and buzzwords to simplify and make our messages digestible. But for any questions you have related to that you don't have prepared for the end, I'll be available to answer anytime through my contact info. So what's on our agenda today? We'll talk a little bit about Proven Winners and our beliefs and methodology. We'll give an example of a really high functioning team that does public beautification about as good as anybody anywhere. We'll talk about long-term display planning, which is absolutely necessary, and we want everyone out of this to kind of put a commercial grower's cap on for a little bit and think in those terms. We want to plan by week number, just like a commercial grower does. Again, commonly used methodologies like a SWOT analysis, easy enough to plug into our planning. And you'll hear me repeat the message of engaging your grower, at the proper times, at the right thresholds of their season when they're doing planning, and we'll cover that quite a bit. And then short-term display planning. What do we want to, what parts do we have in place, and what pivots do we need to make? Because you're dealing with living, breathing organisms. There's going to be some audibles late in the game. And then at the end, I'll cover living solutions. I'll be pulling from the Proven Winners product assortment. But if you pay attention to plant genera, then you're able to apply the knowledge we share with the supplier of your choice. So a little bit about proven winners. It really does come down to being nose to nose with the consumer, um, and responding to their feedback and prioritizing an easy, successful, and inspiring experience for them. And on my side of the spectrum, that includes landscape consumers. Landscapers have a great deal to deal with in their work and in their planning. And plants are a very small part of what they do, but important nonetheless. So we're going to talk about leaning on your vendors whenever possible, because they're there to help. They're built to help, just like we are. These are the companies that comprise Proven Winners North America, all very like-minded, uh, excellent companies that promote high-quality products. They invest in R&D and innovation, and they think along the same lines. So they're efficient, they're focused, and they're eager. So we prioritize North American garden performance, unlike any other brand, and we do the work on the end with the consumer to listen, respond, and make changes when necessary. This is a photo of a trial field under controlled irrigation. Again, it's very important to equalize all the inputs during a trial, so the external factors can be what determines plant performance. Regional trialing is definitely the best method for and how to determine which disease strains will affect the same plant in different regions. Um, we must meet the consumer demand, but also be profitable for breeders and growers. So it's a fine line we walk, but if we have an iterative process that comes back to the needs of all those supply chain stakeholders, then we're safe in making the right decision. So the photo you see here is after selection. We have a greenhouse grower evaluating potential new breeding, and that is very common in the industry. So before production is ramped up, we can have a good idea who's going to be pulling it into their greenhouses to distribute to their retail outlets and all through the supply chain. So we engage, and all breeders do engage with their key stakeholders to make sure that there's going to be success for everyone along the line. A win-win scenario is very important for each stakeholder in the production line. This is a good opportunity to, you know, to express how important it is to lean on third-party testimonial for these products through the public and university trial system. These are unbiased trials that show true regional performance with someone who is not affiliated necessarily with any company or production facility. They are most often selecting on the best interest of gardeners in that region, giving their honest take. So be sure to seek out the data from those public and university trials to build your research portfolio. So now to start off with an example of really the standard bearer in public beautification. As you all are aware, Castle Rock, Washington does a phenomenal job with planning, managing, and incorporating all citizens in their beautification plan. They see it as an economic boost, and they have the numbers to bear it out. Castle Rock is also Proven Winner's only signature city, and that's just a recognition of what they do. Their, their stakeholders chose to use Proven Winners because we do focus on that consumer experience with guaranteed quality through the whole process, so they can have that easy, successful, and inspiring experience. So it was, it's easy to associate for us to associate with a group that really does everything right and leverages all the advantages they have. Pictured here is Nancy Chenault and during an AIB um, during an AIB assessment, and I have on my notes here, give Nancy her flowers because she deserves them, and she's a great example of, you know, a project that when you have a nice to have and a need to have scenario, Castle Rock is boasting a great deal of these nice to have uh, criteria. Uh, Nancy is an industry expert, so can really she can really overlay her knowledge of the industry, of the floriculture industry, uh, to give the advantages to Castle Rock when it comes to producing the baskets that they have and the displays that are literally all over. They have greenhouse access and labor to support that greenhouse. So as we populate all these criteria, you can see where you fit in and what you have. And for those that don't have greenhouses or an industry expert, that's where you want to lean on those vendors to help you out. It is definitely in their interest to help you as well. Castle Rock has a really thoughtful school, stakeholder program, and really inspired students, and that's not easy to achieve. It is a goal to aspire for because it does connect the younger generation to the older. They have what might be most rare is an engaged Department of Public Works with support and backing from the mayor down to the workers that come in on the weekend to begrudgingly take care of displays. Everyone is bought in, and that is more of a testament to the engagement level that Nancy and her volunteer group has developed over the years. But it's also a testament to Department of Public Works taking on extra work, quote unquote, to make everything work. And then there's continuity. There is a, a wide generation of stakeholders, or multiple generations represented in Castle Rock's formula. Uh, Everybody that has been involved for as long as they've been there. It's a program that's over 12 to 13 years old. So they have achieved what is sometimes most difficult, which is continuity in these projects. Um, who is going to come in when nobody else is willing to keep displays alive and plan for that next season so that doesn't happen. And then you have your need to have group, which is baseline fundamental necessary criteria to even look at any of these projects. And what you see pictured here is Sharisha from Castle Rock, who is very enthusiastic, and that enthusiasm is contagious, and that you have to have folks like that in your group to want to take care of these plants in their most vulnerable stages, when practices they never thought were necessary are absolutely necessary. You have to have industry support in some way, shape, or form, whether that is directly on your committees or through your vendor network. And that takes a lot of phone calls and a lot of patience. But, quiet mouth doesn't eat, as they say. Your supplier network overlays with that. There are people on the ground nearby who are representatives that will come visit your project. All you got to do is ask. Your volunteer corps is, it really is the X factor for any project. The diverse makeup of any volunteer corps really determines the success of your project, and how are we prioritizing the needs of the volunteers at every given moment. If you're not, then if you do, the rest will take care of itself. The weekend coverage, the part that nobody thinks about, that's very inconvenient. Again, these are living, breathing things under controlled environment, under often a great deal of stress. So plants don't take days off. That's something we always say in the production side of things. We have to have good weekend coverage if we want successful displays. Again, back to a happy Department of Public Works. They will feel supported and confident if you invest time with them, include them in your potlucks, give them special awards. Every little bit is going to help endear them to your cause and do that little over and aboveness that might not be part of their job description. And then good coordination. Back to all of you out there who take the leadership role and make calls when it's inconvenient, leverage your special skills and your soft skills like Nancy does to the benefit of the group. Those levels of coordination uh, really go a long way to create success for a lot of these projects, which are often extremely vulnerable, especially in the early establishment phases. So we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of display planning. And just like any thoughtful plan, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's an age-old adage that proves true no matter what. It's important to uh, budget or prepare for, some trial and error in your projects. Uh, you know, the if we don't incorporate a little trial and error, then we're not going to be able to make pivots and last minute adjustments that can shut down and deflate a project. And then again, is every part of our plan focused on the outcomes of the stakeholders, because everything comes back to the people involved. And the flowers are and the displays are a byproduct of the good work we're doing. So 50,000 feet over your project, we're cultivating buy-in. We got to know who our audience is, always empowering stakeholders. We have to know the full project scope, uh, and all of these things determine what plants we can use and what kind of investment we can use in our displays and how big those displays can be. Our site selection, that you can push a boulder up a hill trying to make a certain site work, but sometimes it's just easier to make sure that you're doing what you can with the site responsibly and showing that effort. That effort goes a long way, even if a site is challenging. And again, inclusiveness, we're always bringing it back to the people involved and making sure that their expectations are kept, within the bounds of the project, within the thresholds that we can deliver on. You can see on the photo there the very ambitious mass planning of our Supertunias at Hershey Hotel in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Those kinds of displays are not easy to achieve. They take meticulous planning and discipline on the maintenance and care. So we have to have a group that's ready to sign up for that before we take any steps in formal planning. So we'll get into our SWOT analysis, and you know, we need our plan to be visible and have these simple steps we follow, and it creates kind of an insurance policy for those that take the leadership role and coordinate. Because if we're shooting from the hip, then it's going to be a lot easier to criticize our decisions. So having a step-by-step plan, and many of you know this and go through this with your projects and more. But for those just getting into wanting to make their community better through beautification, document your processes and have it referenceable through a SWOT analysis or any other planning mechanism. It's a lot harder to criticize that when everybody's looked at it and signed off on it. So we cover our strengths here as part of the SWOT analysis, and that's what we have or levels of it. Do we have labor and perhaps a labor surplus? Do we have water access? Do we have our own meter provided by the municipality? Is it easy to get? Is it free, or do we pay for it? Eyes and ears policy. This is the part of, assessing how ambitious we want our displays to be. Because if we're just a group that comes in once a week to an area that we don't visit any other time, then that's going to be a vulnerable display. If we don't have little angels in the woodwork, with sweat equity looking out for our projects, it's going to be a lot harder to make them successful. Weather and climate, these are easy to assess. And there is data there, but ultimately, just like any weather dependent event that you might have, there's always going to be that chance that you get that 100-year flood. And you have to be prepared as a group to, extract your successes, interpret that for your stakeholder groups and the folks that support you, in case there is a failure. Um, it, these things are going to happen, but there's no such thing as a flower emergency, as we used to say in the greenhouse. We can always interpret what Mother Nature delivers for us, and bounce back from it. So just be prepared for that, and that feeds into your culture and community. Uh, you know, if you're able to be resilient through your setbacks, that's a winning attitude, and people like to be part of. They like to be on the same team as winners. So um, be prepared for all these. If you have surpluses in any of these areas, then leverage them to create a strong quote unquote insurance policy of messaging and inclusiveness, to make sure that your project is protected, um, not only physically, but uh, systematically. Weaknesses, what we don't have or absence of. Do we have labor deficits? Water restrictions are a reality, and if they're not for you, they're coming your way. Be rest assured. Drainage issues, we there's there's often very little we can do about drainage issues on the surface, and if we're not willing to address it mechanically or with some engineering, then we're going to have to learn to live with it. Alkaline soils, very common in difficult soils in much of North America. Budget constraints. I promise you, even the most prominent public gardens and museums and estates, uh, their their beautification displays are under budget scrutiny constantly. Uh, they're It's the easiest place to cut, so be prepared to protect those with good data, good feedback, numbers on how it equates to broad-based success for you and your group and your community. And then community apathy, uh, you have to play into your strengths, and you can't force your vision on anyone without persuasiveness. And these are definitely things that need to be assessed before we take a step forward and investing our time into planning or execution. I decided to put threats in front of opportunities so we could finish on a positive note. But threats are definitely related to weaknesses in that, mid-stride, once we've executed a plan, uh, things can go haywire. Again, these are living, breathing things, and often in difficult situations with impacts like weather, extremes, etc. So labor gaps, do we have the coverage we need? If not, then we need to reevaluate the plan to make sure we have the coverage we need. If we have to shrink the scope, then so be it, because we would rather have a small, successful plan than frustration across our stakeholder base. Climate and weather extremes, we've covered that. And there's, once a display is in place, there's often very little we can do about this. So we need to be prepared to live with it. Casual stakeholder commitment. These threats can be slow burns over time. Are we recruiting uh, new ideas and new energy into our group, or are we allowing our group to, you know, form small groups of narrow interest or cliques that have only specific uh, narrow interests involved? Stagnant program growth? Are we seeking new investors? Are we out there in the community, again, persuading the uninitiated that this is worth their investment of time and resources? Sometimes budgets get cut, and again, floriculture displays are often the easiest things to cut. So be prepared for that in terms of, do we have a backup plan to consolidate what we do have? There could be last minute budget cuts and we don't get any material to work with. So do we maybe have signage or communications ready to talk about that in place? Because it is about the efforts on behalf of our community, and those can be those can go out in many different ways. So be prepared to communicate what has happened in an open and transparent way. And then vandalism. These vandalism can be one of the most deflating things, or plant theft. So, again, it's tough, but use it as an opportunity. Put some signage up. Um, let everyone know that as part of that display that you see what's going on, and we're ready to meet it with our chins held high, um, and interpret that message for others that no matter what, these displays and what they're doing for our community are most important. Then our opportunities. These are the lofty goals. We all want quality of place. We want to have what the community in Canada on the right has, what Castle Rock has. These are byproducts of a healthy community, displays like this. We want economic development and civic stewardship. We want uh, young folks volunteering to help these initiatives. It gives us hope, and it's teaching them life lessons before they're forced to learn it. Educational diversity, we incorporate the creative side with the science side, and if we have a diverse stakeholder group, then we've achieved that. And then generational transfer. This is something that, from a recent visit to Castle Rock, I know they're going through how to hand this off to that next generation, and all these responsibilities, all this volunteer work, all this free time that is used. People do not want to waste their free time. It is the most valuable thing we have. So they're carefully going through this transfer, and it's important to build into every project. Again, so frustration doesn't grow, and we have continuity. So back to grower engagement. Understanding the grower calendar is a big advantage for any project, whether you have a greenhouse or not. Just thinking in their mindset for a little while, and learning the surface level criteria to engage with them in a useful way in the time of year where you can have their attention. So we'll go through some of the key dates, and this will be kind of wonky. What you see on the right is from a floriculture trade show called Cultivate, which is in North America, it's the industry's biggest trade show, mostly because it kicks off the floriculture ordering and booking season. It's held in mid-July, and that's when, at least for proven winners, sales start after we've made selections for upcoming product cycles. So these shows are very important to us, and where we consolidate a lot of information to give growers who have a little time in the mid to late summer after their busiest seasons. They can travel to a place like Columbus and learn more. And these are great places to engage. It's a very colorful and inviting show. So even if you're not in the industry, it's a wonderful place to learn a lot in a short period of time with people who are, planning to be there, who know what who can answer your questions. So this will be a bit wonky, but we'll walk through it. So we'll start in mid-July with the Cultivate Trade Show. Like I said, that's when uh, our new season starts for Proven Winners, when orders for the next spring can be booked. And you'll see that I use week numbers because that's kind of how we're trained to work in the floriculture side of things. And it makes things a lot easier to plan for, and it simplifies your calendar. So you'll see that a lot in here and in my notes. But that's mid-July, and that's when these products are, for our key customer, the young plant grower, um, who is bringing in rooted liners from our propagators. This is where they want to get that relevant information. There are salespeople and brokers who get information at a different time, and we'll cover that. Week 43, that's mid-October, mid to late October. So that's when early order windows are closing. There's incentives for ordering early. So even two steps in, you can see that the time to start planning your your next spring's display, if we're talking Cultivate 25, you're already looking at what you're going to do in your public displays for 2026. So your growers are thinking that they want to have most of their orders in place by mid-October to take advantage of those uh, early order incentives. You know, greenhouses are fixed places with fixed space. So they have to be able to forecast what will fit on their benches during that growing season. So they have to plan that out way ahead of time. So moving on, frost-free date for zone 9. This is roundabout week 13. This is early to mid-March. This is when, it's spring in the south. Those of you in Florida, Texas, and otherwise, you're thinking spring around early to mid-March. So their plants are being grown much earlier. So you can see, for those of us in the upper Midwest, we're thinking Mother's Day, and plants and plans are being made in greenhouses everywhere much earlier than that. California spring trials, this is usually early, just before Easter, overlaps with Easter sometimes. This is when all the sales and the brokers who navigate the supply chain on behalf of the growers, they're getting information and education on what's coming next. So they can be educated by the time Cultivate comes around to talk to their grower customers. There's a specific methodology in place to make sure that knowledge transfer happens at the right times, because there's so many products to track. And the frost-free date, that's Mother's Day week 19. That's frost-free for most of us in the rest of the United States. So that's when the floodgates open. Mother's Day weekend is easily the biggest sales window for most of the businesses in our industry on the retail side. Um, but if we're waiting till Mother's Day to choose our plants for our plans, then we're going to have limited success. We want to plan way ahead of that. For some of these products that are started in laboratories to get virus-free growing and production, you're looking at 18 months out. So if you want that really fancy new scented begonia, you're really going to have to let your grower know well ahead of time. So we're going to take a small detour and tangent into ecosystem support and gardening for wildlife, and gardening for pollinators. We want to promote a balanced approach. Proven winners and other ornamental breeders we're bringing usually sterile hybrids to the market to get more flowering, and with that is linked to, if we have a sterile plant, they're not producing seeds, um, but they are holding that garden place in a balanced way, still producing pollen and nectar. They're and they're keeping it pretty for the people need pretty. So as our natives and other support plants are going through their natural cycles, if they're local genotype natives, then it's good to have persistent flowering in there to keep the interest of the public and keep our project, healthy and interpreting the art of uh, harnessing nature in horticulture for the public. There's a lot of lessons in there and a lot of reasons to use a blended approach with cultivated ornamentals and native genotypes. So what are the ecosystem services of your plants? And be prepared to, if you're subject to a restricted plant list because of conservation restrictions, then be prepared to communicate what those ecosystem services are and be intentional. If you have a goal to support wildlife, then you have to do the homework of you know being able to interpret for the public and anybody who comes through on tours what your stated goals were and what wildlife you're looking to support. And again, people need pretty. I've seen many roundabout projects or gateway projects that were well-intentioned, fully native, fully native, planting lists, and those are great for wildlife support, but they have uh, limited ornamental appeal during parts of the year, and the public will quickly lose interest. So again, are we using a balanced approach of putting persistent flowering herbaceous items in, uh, shrubs with longer bloom periods with more compact branching and habit to maintain a strong ornamental feature in our displays, no matter what the ecosystem support goals are. And when we're looking at the wide range of uh, products that are out there, you know, native is a broad term, and there's lots of there are strongly defined definitions out there, and there are some loosely defined definitions out there. Uh, but when you're thinking about a public project, if you know your plant is non-invasive, then it's not going to take over and it's not going to go where it's not supposed to go. So determine its non-invasive status or its invasiveness first, and then you can have a lot less pressure on discussing whether it's native, adapted, um, or any of the other terms that account for the the period of time that a plant was introduced and adapted to its area. That's where there's gray area, but invasive versus non-invasive is black and white. And then our supply chain. We really have to know what inputs have gone into our plants if we want them to support wildlife. Systemic pesticides are, they can keep plants pretty, but if one of our goals is to support pollinating insects, then we probably don't want systemic insecticides in our plants at any point in production. And that, again, engage your grower and let them know that and find out what your best options are. So we're mobilizing now. Uh, we have our plan in place. Everybody's looked at each other and agreed, and now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. One of the strongest methodologies in floriculture is a start clean, stay clean production process. We really want all of our processes to follow uh, those kinds of guidelines. For example, are we using totes to capture the spoils and the backfill on our project, or are we just making piles that we have to do more work to drag back, uh, kind of creating extra labor, extra mess for handling annuals in a greenhouse? Are we wearing gloves to protect those annuals? from viruses and other diseases. We want to have that clean workflow in everything we do so we can have very healthy displays. Soil tests are easy to get. Another reason to engage your extension agent, your local county or university extension agent to go through the process of learning how to do a soil test. So again, you can have that measurable, referenceable uh, data to speak to new stakeholders in your group or potential funders that we're doing our homework and we're only using the necessary amount of fertilizer, for instance, that our soil test requires. Organic matter is sometimes lost in the messaging on healthy annual displays. We want to incorporate clean compost and organic matter because a lot of these high performing annuals are they're they are free flowering. Again, they're not producing seed and then shutting down. A lot of them just continue to bloom through late summer and short days. So they're using a lot of resources. And they can, whether we're using controlled release, water soluble, and other fertilizers, that organic matter and a small incorporation at many different times into our soil profile will always help the nutrients have something to bond to and allow the plants to have other minerals and nutrients there and something to cool the roots midsummer. We always want to be incorporating organic matter into our soils and to our displays, into our root zone management. Bend, don't break. We absolutely want to uh, we want to take our plants and our displays to the to their limits at times to learn what their limits are and to tone them. If we come out with plants straight out of the greenhouse in an early spring situation without toning them, then we run the risk of tissue damage with a light frost, or if we bring them out and it's nothing but direct uh, luxurious care is the best term to use, then the displays can stretch and become weak. So we want to again adopt that grower's mindset to tone our displays as they are established. And then tough love again, back to the, you know, what are our limits on because plants are tougher than we give them credit for. And we want to learn those limits, and those limits change throughout the season. So these are things we want to think about and incorporate as we start getting our plants from the grower outlet that we use. It's game day. Uh, we want a cradle to cradle thought process. The photo here is a install I did at a trial garden at Green Legacy in Ohio, and the soil was like very sticky glue. And that made me change my process. And that's not something that I didn't have the benefit of knowing the soil type before I got there. And in order for my earth auger to be effective, I needed wet soil. Well, the wet soil created stickier conditions. So, the Mike Tyson is famous for saying, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the mouth. And that's what game day is about. You're going to have some pivots to make. You're going to have some adjustments to make. So be prepared for that and have safeguards in place. Follow your plan. Again, if you can never be accused of being, disregarding the goals of the group, if you're staying on the plan, always read the label for anything you do, including plant labels. It can save you a lot of work if you're planting an extremely vigorous plant. You don't have to use as many in a certain area. So be sure you know the features and benefits of the plants you're using. Root zone management is that invisible layer beneath the soil that as you do this more often becomes more visible and becomes the most important thing that you think about is how we're going to manage the root zone of this display. Canopy management again, the spacing, how much, are we using a synthetic pre-emergent herbicide? Are we going to use labor to pull weeds throughout the season? And how are we managing that canopy? Because the idea is to get that canopy to fill in as soon as possible, so the roots don't establish or thrive. And then, of course, water. It's the last thing we do before we leave the site, is to make sure that the roots are established, the soil around them is saturated, and we have good air exchange and good drainage. The the plants are those roots under the soil. They need that air. That's often why wood mulches aren't a good idea for an annual display. That will inhibit the air exchange, and we have to find other ways to keep weeds out of our beds. After the installation, one of the famous famous last words of a display manager is, "Oh, it's raining. That'll be enough." And rain is oftentimes never enough. Sometimes it is, and if you get a good steady day of rain, we can be assured that it was enough for our containers and our displays. But don't make the mistake of thinking that a brief rainfall is going to cover the plant needs, because you'd be surprised how much it takes to saturate that root profile. When you see on this bed on the right, there's a lot of competition in there. And those plants are spaced uh, in the correct way for them to thrive in that area in the root zone they're allowed. But it often takes a good deal of water and saturation to make them happy. Siege warfare. This has everything to do with how we manage weeds and invasives. Um, if we're using a synthetic pre-emergent and we're reading the label and we're applying right, it can often be the most effective way to reduce labor and increase the success of our displays by keeping weeds from establishing. But do not make the mistake of putting a 4 to 6 week pre-emergent down and then getting the impulse to reach in there and step into your bed and pull weeds 2 weeks later, because then you've negated the ability uh, of that pre-emergent to continue working, and you've unlocked the seed bed again. Wait until that 4 to 6 week window to reapply, and just before you do, go through and do a maintenance event, and then it'll reestablish um, the the protection, and you'll have good air exchange again because you've gone through and you've opened up the soil profile. Any last words? Again, you don't want to paint yourself into a corner of processes and have to go back and do something after you've put your pre-emergent down. You really want to plan and sequence your activities. So the last thing you're doing is a gentle soaking in of your new display. And then it is kind of a set it and forget it, aside from irrigation events after that. The food pyramid is, we said that plants are tougher than they look, and they are. And they can often go a long time without food, without expressing what they need. But if we always have the nutrient uh, available, and I would recommend for a lot of these high demand annuals, a controlled release fertilizer, and then an occasional water soluble application or fertigation. They are high demand plants that eat a lot, and many of them are non-negotiable on having fertilizer if incorporated if you want success. It's just part of the budget, part of the plan, and in addition to uh, organic matter available, it is a multi-pronged approach to keeping the plants happy. So we've gone through all the qualifying criteria, and now we're down to plant selection. And we do want safety in numbers, because in a smaller intentional display that's bright and inviting is going to be a lot more successful than spreading our resources thin and you know allowing plants to languish because they're not getting the care. Concentrate those efforts. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of our best plants for tough applications or specific applications. These are some of the headings. We have the Hell Strip Heroes. Everyone knows what that is. Next to a sidewalk, next to a difficult building, a thin area. Um, we have pollinators in here, nonstop color with self-cleaning flowers, and then plants that are better for containers. So I have all these up here, and again, you guys will probably receive the slides separately at some point, so you can study this. But again, pay attention to the genera used here. These are just examples from the Proven Winners assortment that are really good for tough situations. The qualifier here is that these plants still need what I would call newborn care when they're put in, no matter how tough the soil. We have to establish good drainage and air exchange for the root zone. Because if they're established correctly and we promote deep root growth um, with longer, more saturating, but less frequent waterings, as opposed to keeping the roots wet all the time so they don't have to do any work. Then we're going to drive those roots down to cooler areas and they'll be much more resilient in your Hell Strips. These are plants that really set the edge. They capture the eye, and it's a good place to start for tough and durable, consistent color that can often protect other things in your displays. These are tough plants that give a great. They are often our best performers and our most versatile performers. The pollinator plants that we have are, again, we make the claims through observation and repeated trials and evaluations that we have plants that will attract pollinators, and we see repeat visits, so then we know that they're supporting pollinators. But we will never make the claim to be as important as a local native. So again, use these natural forms that are sterile and showy. In some cases, they have specialty traits like the heliotrope is highly fragrant. It's a very tough landscape plant, and our salvias will attract a great deal of hummingbirds. The rock and salvias will bring in those hummingbirds, so put them in a position where that can be observed by your stakeholders and your community. And these are your features. These are the plants you want to build around. There's really no better option for deep shade with high root competition under a tree canopy to add color than our heart-to-heart caladiums. But this is a product line that you have to engage with the grower very early, make sure they're comfortable growing the product because it is a step-by-step process for them. It requires uh, proper timing and the use of heat, which costs that grower money. So we want to make sure that if we want caladiums, we have to vet our sources for them, so we get them and they're actively growing, and they're not stymied in any way. Because once they do, it's tough to get them out of that. We want them to continue growing and be happy all the way through. And a lot of these plants they can anchor both containers and landscape displays. And a lot of these plants and many in our assortment and other assortments, uh, I would use at eye level. Calibrachoa, our Super Bell series, has a wider color range in their flowers than any other line we have. Uh, and they like to grow dry and they don't like alkaline soils. So if you have a window box or a high profile container, these are really ideal for low maintenance care because they're a plant that if you miss that second watering in the middle of summer, even though they might flag and wilt a little bit, they're going to pop back the next day because they like those dry conditions. And they might show you that, but resist that temptation to water them late. It's a lot better to let them wilt and flag just a little bit rather than send them to bed wet. Uh, make sure you have enough sunlight to dry out the canopy of your plants. And these are good examples of ones that you, again, back to that water early and resist watering at night. And if you know, again, trial and error is necessary. You have to grow it to know it. That's another tried and true statement and from the floriculture industry. Uh, and leverage these trialed and tested combinations that proven winners and other suppliers come out with. These are tested by our customers. They have demonstrated sell-through for wholesale and retail outlets. And there's such a wide selection of product on the market. And if you're unfamiliar with some of the components, there's no easier way to try them than to bring in a few of these what we call bundled kits and use that as your trial and error to test out multiple unfamiliar new products. And proven winners and again other partners within the floriculture industry, uh, they have a wide variety of resources that are not always visible, but once you get under that layer that you guys are a certain enlightened level of consumer that does work with industry in big ways and sometimes have compelling plant orders that get the attention of suppliers. So do not hesitate to lean on us for all of us for extra help. You, you never know what happens when you ask someone to plug in something else. It might even be a benefit you weren't even thinking of, like pulling an expert, a growing expert in the area into your project to guarantee success. And that's all I have. Thank you, Laura, and everyone.
All right, Josh, thank you so much. All right, we do have a few questions. If you have questions that you have not put in the Q&A section, please do so now so we can throw those at Josh. Josh, we're going to start with the question on trials. Are the trials focused on plants for residential markets versus larger urban settings, like city streets where have less care but more stress? So let's talk about those trials.
That's a good question. And you know, the important way to look at trials is that uh, they are they are focused for the consumer market as it by and large as a rule. So everything trickles down from retail, and so when a breeder is working with a grower to release their product, they're targeting the retail consumer, and with that, as the product is picked up and found to be successful for growers and retailers, then that creates demand on the commercial side, where landscapers tend to pay attention once something is proven. As you all know, and you share this burden with landscapers that your displays are not failure is not an option. You need them to work. And so once those products are vetted and you see them used in municipal projects, commercial parking lot islands, uh, it's all the same product trickling down from that retail machine.
Thank you. All right, so the second question is, could you please comment on developing a training program for not only volunteers, but seasonal labor that may be assigned the task of planting and maintaining floral displays?
Yeah, I think again, it's you can choose any outline structure that you like for your quote unquote curriculum, depending on your audience. There's, if it's, for example, there's great curriculum out there that's free for teaching elementary age school kids how to grow and establish plants. And, there's colorful characters used and everything to hook the interest of a young person. And then there's no frills options that you could plug into an AI generator and distill from there uh, for your specific project. Um, but it is about engaging the needs of the plant primarily, and all those criteria we talked about that, kind of allow you to distill down what plants you can use based on the variables you have. So I would, many things are about what fits for your organization, and I don't think there's any specific, uh, you know, golden standard for training on these because even we talk about the plants being living, breathing, variable things. Your displays, your community is a living, breathing organism. So you have to find the right fit.
Awesome. All right, so last question, and this has to do with signature city or signature garden status. So talk about how you get that designation from proven winners, and what would beginning communities like? What's the goal, and how do you get that? And by the way,
So,
Castle Rock would like some friends. They are your only signature city, and they want some friends. They said.
right, that's great. Um, yes, I think the we're all in the right group because starting with American Bloom is easily the gateway drug to find your way into a signature garden or signature city designation. Um, I can't emphasize enough uh, the truly exceptional combination of factors and impacts that Castle Rock has to make their designation sort of a one of one. And we talk about it, but there's a lot there. Uh, so on a signature garden side, you know, a lot of what we have there, those are existing relationships we have. Um, and they're with uh, longstanding vetted stakeholders of the Proven Winners brand. And many of what, much of what qualifies them is that they're a high profile attraction that doesn't have a admission based fee to see their signature garden. So a lot of the signature garden designation is about fit. Um, for to work your way toward a signature city as a municipal in Bloom's project, you know, follow the steps of American Bloom, and there couldn't be a more systematic approach to achieve that. And maybe we'll see you there someday.
Great, thank you. All right, Josh, any closing comments for you or anything?
No, thank you for allowing the time to share some of my experience and mixing it with our brand message. We're very grateful to support American Bloom and all the communities involved and are eager to find more ways to help. So please let us know.
Great. Thank you so much, Josh. That was outstanding. Really appreciate your being with us today. We will have a recording of this webinar posted on the website later today, americaandbloom.org, and it will be posted on the AIB Facebook page. We have more webinars planned in 2026. Our first one in the new year will be on Tuesday, January 20th at 12 noon Eastern. It is called Building Pollinator-Friendly Landscapes in Your Community. That will be presented by David Hammond of the organization called Creating Habitats for Pollinators. They're dedicated to creating vibrant habitats for pollinators like butterflies, bees, moths, and birds. You don't want to miss that webinar. You can learn more about this and other webinars we offer by visiting our website at americaandbloom.org. And thank you to everyone for joining us, and a special thanks to Josh for the wonderful presentation. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you all.